Welcome back to JMC Live. At the break, I told you I was going to share with you about an opportunity of a lifetime. Let's look at Lamentations 3, 57 and 58. It's Lamentations, it's in the Old Testament, 3, 57 and 58. It says, "You came near when I called you, and you said, 'Do not fear.' O Lord, you took up my case. You redeemed my life." Now keep that in mind as I share more of my personal testimony. The mountains and valleys I call my life. Now here it goes. My music teacher, I'm already out of college. She's there during the summer doing stuff. She says, "You can keep your clarinet. It's alright. I have an opportunity of a lifetime for you. But you might have to learn a new instrument." I was like, "What are you talking about?" "Well, there's two colleges, one college and one university. Angelina College has a $500 scholarship for the jazz class. You have to learn in 7 days how to play saxophone. Or you can play the saxophone or clarinet and go to a 4-year, fully funded housing, meal plan, books, tuition, everything, completely paid 100% to the Stephen F. Austin State University in Nacogdoches, Texas." Those that are familiar for Texas know about SFA, and they know about Lufkin Angelina College. Well, we have gone through a lot of vehicles in my life. There were times when me and my mom would have to ride a bike and walk to pick up our groceries. Remember that 2-mile walk? We've had vehicles break. We've gone through 3 or 4 vehicles, old, used vehicles. So here's what happens. You end up seeing a change. I'm all excited. I'm thinking I'm going to get to go to college. All I got to do is try out. I go and tell my mother and my stepfather, "Hey, I can go to college." She says, "Well, I thought you don't want to go to school, boy. I thought you don't care about all that knowledge stuff. Why don't you come work with me and learn the carpentry business?" Now, the weird, ironic thing is this man was driving to Nacogdoches every day to work, 5 a.m. to 2 or 4, or whenever he got off. It was the only vehicle we had. This was a 1974 Chevrolet Suburban. It was rusted and old. You would have to change the oil every 2 days. Now, he had enough money to go buy 30, as they call it, a case of beer. And they had money to go buy cigarettes and cigars and steaks every night because that's what he wanted. But I was told, "No, Jeremy, you cannot take my truck to Nacogdoches. That's my truck, boy." And he does the whole poking in the side here. Oh yeah, he was an ex-Marine. I forgot to tell you about that. This guy had PTSD, killed a lot of people, and supposedly he even had to kill some people in the squad because they went nuts when he was in the war. So every now and then this guy would flip out and say me and my mom were Vietnamese and he'd try and kill us. So he's beating my mom, he's raping my mom, and he's beating me. But he would beat you in a way where he could punch you and poke you, and you would not have a physical bruise whatsoever. He could grab me with his 2 fingers like this right here, and he can make it where I can't move my hands. The most horrifying thing he did to me that summer is he took his thumb and he shoved it right here in my face. I could not talk, I could not move, and I fell flat right over. He said, "If I hit you harder, I would have killed you." And I believed he could. So I decided, well, can I take the $500 scholarship? So my dreams are shattered for a full music scholarship at this point. This is 1999. And I turn to my mother and say, "Can I do this?" She said, "Yes, but you got to take your test." So I go and take my exam. I pass it. I go home. And on the way home, things are all right. The same week that I got accepted, my mother took my stepfather to work that morning, and they wanted me to pick him up at 4. We had a meeting place that we would meet between, it was called Homer, Texas. I know that's kind of funny. It's between Huntington and Lufkin, Texas. and I was driving this truck. I noticed it wouldn't get any faster. I couldn't shift gears. It stayed about 30 or 40, so I floored it. And when I floored it, I heard this loud pop, smoke comes out, and then I finally could drive, and I parked. And by the time they finally showed up, between that popping and pulling over, there's a pool of oil. I was lucky that no one threw a cigarette out, because if they did, they would have hit the pool of oil, and would have came over to me, and poof, truck. Well, a rod busted into the oil pan, so one of the rods was connecting the vehicle. In other words, the motor is screwed up, and it popped, and it also busted the head of the truck. So at this point, my stepdad had no way to get to work. I had no way to get to college. So not only did I lose my 4-year scholarship, I lost my $500 scholarship, and I lost my transportation and my only way of getting out of this hellhole. At this point, I started looking for work. And in the process of looking for work, I found a girlfriend. This girl was involved in Wicca. Wicca is a witchcraft-orientated, nature, New Age religion. By the end of it, she took my old promise ring, and she also took my virginity in the summer of June 1999. She didn't like my stepdad either. And at this point, I didn't care about God either. I went through a dark path at this point, because I knew my stepdad deserved his just reward, as I kept telling myself. We had nurses, aides, and all sorts of stuff trying to help my grandmother before she died, and they all said that SOB's got to die, and they would cuss and get angry. The most purest of Christian people that I ever met that would see my stepdad behave, they would lose control of their anger at least, and tell them to stop or want to hit them or something. When you see a man beat a child or beat a woman, I don't know anyone that has a heart that can have 100% self-control and not commit any 100% sin. It happens. So I started to work out, and I got a job. I lost a job because I got sick, worked for less than a week. And then I got another job, another girlfriend. And then another Thanksgiving and Christmas. As I said, this is a Memoirs of a Thanksgiving meal. Well, for me, I kind of feel like, what is it, Bill Murray and Groundhog Day? I think it should be Jeremy Caverley and Thanksgiving Day, and just repeating the Thanksgiving hell year after year after year of no one wants to come over because my house is a disaster and it's nasty, and you have these people that do want to come over who are in drugs and alcohol and raving sex maniacs. That was the kind of life I was in. So it finally happened where the police came over finally for one of the last times. And this is when I was really cocky. Some people don't realize how cocky and how angry I can get. People don't know. When the chief of police came to my house. Now normally you don't have the chief of the police come to your house unless he is fed up with what's going on, or there has been numerous calls to your home. There were other people that would call my home and call the places of what I have and see the things that happened. So this is where it went. It went something like this. The next thing that you would see is me sitting on a porch. There's a police officer in the yard with his gun almost drawn. The chief of police is literally back against my back. I'm sitting on the porch. He's talking to my stepdad. I'm laughing, threatening my stepdad, because the chief of police is behind me and saying, "Why don't you pick on a real man?" Now, yeah, I was 18, but you got to remember my stepdad was 195 pounds. He's an ex-Marine, and the job he was working then was picking up 80-pound pipes and shoving them up like this into seismic drilling lines. The guy was buff at this point. There's no way 5'6", 165-pound little weakling guy who can't lift over 60 pounds beat him. Then another time happened, and the police said, "Jeremy, are you tired of being here? Because I have a way of getting you out. You just got to trust me." And as they put the handcuffs on my arms, I have been arrested. I had been put in the back of the police car and the door is shut. He says, I'm sorry I have to do this to you, Jeremy, but we're going to go to make certain to follow the law. You're going to go to the hospital. And we're going to release you, and you'll just be there for a while. Well, I made a threat on my stepdad in that year. And he called the police, and when you make a threat on someone's life, if they feel threatened, they can have you arrested to have a psychiatric evaluation. Now here's the interesting part of the story. The doctor was friends with one of my friends that helped me get to Teen Mania Ministries. One of my friends from school showed up, and my mother kept calling at least 93 times in an hour. It was very crazy. So you got to realize, in the 2000 year, when I was homeless the first time, I went to Teen Mania, I went to South Africa, and when I left South Africa and left Teen Mania of November 2000, I got sent right back home to my mom and stepdad. So this second time that the integration of me and my stepdad happened, the police said, we got to get you out of here. We got to get you a safe place. We got to put you in an environment where you can get a hand up and not a handout. And you can actually mature. You can grow at your own pace. And when you're in this kind of calamity and storm, there is nothing productive. The reason why I call this a Memoirs of a Thanksgiving Meal is it always started at Thanksgiving. I would remember. The family would come together and things would happen and it didn't work, and we'd go through Christmas and everything, and then it would move all the way. So it was from November all the way to Valentine's Day. But there's hope in this. When I leave the second time, I'm not going back to the Godtail Ministries that I stayed at. I didn't want to do that because I got fed up. And when you get tired of sin, and when you get tired of the way you're living, you get fed up. You say, enough is enough. I'm not going to be treated this way anymore. I'm not going to allow this situation to control me and put a noose around my neck. I'm not going to. So I decided to go south to Houston, to the Salvation Army. While there, I was around drug addicts, alcoholics, all sorts of different kinds of people, living at a shelter, and learning how to be a man. I was still considered naive at this point. Didn't know the streets or anything. And I'm living with men who've been on the streets, been in prison, been pimps, been all sorts of stuff. At this point, the Salvation Army gives me an opportunity of a lifetime. And I took it. I got to start singing with the choirs. I got to start preaching. I got to start teaching class. I taught counseling class. I taught alcoholic class, alcoholiconomics class, all those kinds of classes I participated in. I talked, I discussed, I went to the meetings, I went to all of these wonderful things. But my heart was still empty. I did not think I should join the Salvation Army. Now, I think this is possibly just me rebelling, because I would have been able to join the Salvation Army, become a Salvationist, gone to officer training school. I was already an adherent, in line to become a soldier and everything. And the next thing you know, I call my aunt. My aunt allows me to move in. So I move in 2002, 2003-ish. I get a job, I get a girlfriend, I get a fiance, but I don't have any more church. No one's going to church on a regular basis. So when I come back, I'm going to share with you the Memoirs of a Thanksgiving Meal when I finally move into my aunt's house and I try to have a little more normalcy in my life. Be right back.